everybody. This is Ashley and Lindy with In Broad Daylight. This is our second podcast. Last week we talked about our mottos, and today we're going to talk about our resolutions for 2022. And we've broken it into the different aspects of being human, and that being physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional. Hi, Ashley.
Hi. Hi, Lindy. It feels good to be back.
Yes, it does. And I'm excited about our topic today.
Yeah, I'm ready to make some resolutions.
Or, as when I was doing some research on resolution, where the word came from, it actually, because I wondered, well, it makes sense that it's a resolution, like we're resolute, but I tripped into revolution. And I really like that because to me, revolution is an action word. Resolution is more of like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this. But I like revolution because I feel like I'm in motion.
Yeah, and it sounds really powerful. It's a powerful word. Um, and I like it because it's new.
Yeah.
We're putting a new spin
Yeah. It excited
on
me.
a worn out tradition.
Yeah.
Maybe not a worn out tradition, but it needs some new flair to it.
Well, I have never been big on resolution because I figure, anytime I want to change something, I should be able to do it anytime I want to. And it never made sense to me.
Right. Why do we wait for the beginning of the
Exactly.
year to better ourselves?
Exactly. And in breaking it up into these four aspects, it made it more exciting. And then when I ran across the word revolution, it was like, yes, that was inspiring for me.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about the four aspects of being human?
So my thought on this is that the physical is about our apparatus, our physical being, and that our mental is really what is our content. Our emotion is our gauge, and the spiritual is that thing that connects us to the universe. That's our higher self. And I think that mm, they're definitely interconnected. So even when we talk about each of these things, they'll overlap with each other. And in unison, that's why I liked breaking it up in these four aspects because it's a little bit more clear to me to get more detailed about. It's one thing to say I'm going to lose so much weight, but it also has to deal with your mental and it has to deal with your emotions, and it's connected with the spiritual part.
Yeah, they're definitely all connected and work in
Yeah,
unison.
yeah. So let's start with physical. How are you going to revolutionize your physical apparatus for the year 2022?
So this year, I'm going to be working on turning good habits into part of my everyday life. I'm going to work on um, taking care of myself and living for the future, not just in the moment, to make sure that I'm making the right choices that's going to get me as far into the future as possible.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit older, and um, our bodies hang on to these choices that we make more now than in our 20s, or we bounce back a little bit better back then. um, so really making the right choices, um, as far as activities and how I'm treating my body and taking care of myself. And that's, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually as well.
Right. Does that, thinking about that, does it help you thinking about your future self? Like, do you stop yourself um, when you notice that you're doing something that is probably more for being in the moment? Like, that for me, it would be the taste of the food. Like, I just got to have this.
Right, right. Definitely. And I think the good habits go hand in hand. So if I'm spending time working out, I'm going to make more effort to eat better.
Yeah.
And I know, wow, that's making me feel really good. Or I know, when it's time for dinner and, oh, I don't feel like cooking. I'm tired. I did just work out. I could throw in frozen pizza or something, but to really like go, you know what? I'll feel even better if I just make a salad or so it does. But it is something that I'm working to revolutionize. So I definitely want to be more conscious and think even further into the future. Um, yeah. I'm thinking it's funny because you would look at me and I'm a mom of three and I'm almost 40, and you would never think that I can do a cartwheel. But you know what? I can. And I can do a handstand and I love to do it, and it scares my husband because he thinks I'm going to hurt myself. But I'm like, I want to be 20 years from now still able to do that.
Exactly. Exactly.
I think about like, now I'm thinking about, and it's the last thing most parents want to think about is being a grandparent. My kids are way too young to even have that as a thought, but I think about like I want to play and be active with my grandkids like you are,
Yes.
I want to get on the floor. I want to have the energy to do that. So this is how I'm kind of guiding my thoughts on it's time to really get in shape and to stay in shape.
I like that. I have something when we go into the emotional part that'll bring us back to this because that's my issue. I think with the eating, really is. I'm
Yeah.
pretty disciplined when it comes to yoga and walking, and I try different things out. Like I've been challenging myself to swimming a couple of times in the pool. I admittedly not in the last month because the last time I stayed in for 40 minutes and I froze my thighs so that they did not defrost for about six
Oh my
hours.
gosh.
I kind of overdid it. But I do have the reason I asked you the question when it comes to eating, it's an emotional thing for me. So it's
Mhm.
hard for me to ask myself that question because I'll start fighting with myself. Well, your future self wants you to stop right now. And my present self is
Well, my future self is not here right now.
right.
And I think that's the part about making good habits become part of everyday life. So we have to form these into um, routine, so we're used to it. So we're always. It's not even. Um, if you want to indulge, you're going to pick a different type of indulgence than what you're used to
Right.
right
Right.
now, calling it something different. But definitely, I think those emotional triggers um, really affect everybody. We all have things we lean on: alcohol, sleep, um, devices, like our phones and stuff when we're in an emotional state.
Exactly. Exactly. And so finding healthier
And
ways of dealing with those emotional triggers.
and it's not even just not even those um, I call them negative emotions, but when we get together, right, it's always centered around food and not usually the healthiest of foods. Where we have the Super Bowl coming, and you think of, you're making your list and planning all the yummy junk food you want to
Right.
have and that's what we do when we plan parties. We think of the most uh, delectable things that we don't normally eat, and that's exciting about it. And so it's centered around food instead of centered around each other and what we're doing and having
Well,
conversations. That seems to be like further in the
and
distance.
food is definitely part of the human experience in celebrating,
Oh,
right?
definitely. I would never want to
No,
remove it.
no, no. But it is interesting when you add 2 pounds of cream cheese to those mashed potatoes, how great it makes them taste.
Yeah, and so that, just being mindful of thinking into the future, and maybe that means, okay, if I'm um, cheating today, then I'm going to work harder the next day, or making sure that our bedtime routines don't consist of ice cream and candy or,
Right, right, exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
I think for me, with the physical as well as to keep working on my physical apparatus and always getting better with that. Um, I want to push myself to my appropriate edge. So, like just a little bit harder. Not like I did with the pool. That was going too far. But just like when I want to give up, are you sure you want to give up? Because really the mind gives up before the body gives up. So like when I'm
Definitely.
doing planks, I can add another 10 seconds onto that, or I'm pretty happy with the walking. Sometimes I overdo that too.
I was just going to say, do you ever compare the two? Like, I know recently, especially, you've really upped your game in walking, so you can walk like 8 miles a day. So, do you ever say, hey, you just walked 8 miles. You could definitely go 30 more seconds on this plank. Like, you can do it. If you can do that, you can do
Right.
this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And encourage yourself to really. And I know you're a competitive person, so
And
um,
how do you know that, Ashley?
do you? So do you ever try to like compete with yourself, like make it a
Oh, definitely.
challenge?
Yes. Yeah. But I didn't think about it like that before. So I like that. Great idea.
Mm,
Thank you. Yeah.
yeah. I wonder if sharing those little celebrations with somebody would help encourage you to keep um, pushing forward and trying harder rather than it, if you don't talk about it and you're celebrating all on your own, it maybe doesn't feel as triumphant because hopefully you're always proud of yourself, but to really hear it enforced by somebody else might help you
You know
too.
who I share with a lot? The
Who's
grandkids.
that? Mm, and they're always proud of you.
That's why I share with them.
They
They are like
are.
cheerleaders.
Yeah.
They're so
And they're
fun.
like genuinely excited for
They
you.
are. And you know what's interesting when I tell them stuff? Like I do share with other people, but their response and their reaction is so positive, so soothing, so like you keep going, Mima, you got this. Yeah. They're
Ah,
they're they're amazing. Yeah. I, I really
yeah.
appreciate them. So let's move on to mental. How how do you see yourself revolutionizing your mental state?
So before, when we had talked about this, I thought I had my mind made up, and I talked about wanting to challenge myself and put myself out there. And I still want to do that. I do want to exercise um, my mental capacity. But last night, it was so funny because I was trying to fall asleep and it just hit me. I don't know if it was keeping me up or what. I really want to focus on following through with my intentions.
Mm.
So, and I thought, what does that mean? Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm aiming for. So all week long, I think about people I want to talk to. I create my to-do list of the things I want to get done, and I'm even guilty of making promises. All of these with the best of intentions, and then when I go to execute them, even the simplest task seems like it's a huge deal, and I put it off, and then the next thing you know, time flies by, and none of my intentions get brought to light. And I don't know, um, I'm not trying to be hard on myself, and I realize like going through things, it could be depression or you have 3 kids, you're busy, but really, like, there's more that can be done there. I can, if I'm taking the time to think about these things, like I want to go the next step further and really start getting them done. Because unfortunately, all those people that I think about that I want to talk to and want to, let them know, they're not ever hearing my intentions.
Right.
So what good does that
But
do?
even more important, it goes back to the four agreements. And your word is your bond. And I think what happens, I've been working on that aspect as well, because then we don't trust ourselves anymore. And that
Mm,
instills so much. And I think that's awesome. I think that is a huge
yeah.
mental boost because when
It gets so easy to put things off and become that
yep,
procrastinator because now it's just um, It's that bad habit, and you forget, like, oh, less, when you see little harm coming from it, it gets easier and easier to do because maybe you're putting off something you really don't want to do.
Right.
Um, but then it becomes just habits of everything is getting put off, or, you feel like your intentions are good enough. Well, at least I thought about it. I really
Yeah.
wanted to do it.
Yeah. But really, it's insidious because it's a slow thing. You give yourself excuses, but then you start losing integrity.
Yes. Yeah. So that's where I feel I want to get myself back online and in line, and really follow through with some of these things that not only that I'm promising to do, or but I really genuinely do want to do them. I want to make sure my loved ones know. I don't want to lose friends over, um, you know, just being too tired to talk at the end of the day. That's pretty
It
silly.
is. It is. And then
So
in the flow of life, it just gets harder and harder to do that reconnect call. That's what we tell ourselves,
yeah,
not today, and then pretty soon it's a year, it's a couple of years. And it's crazy how fast it
yeah.
goes.
They so and so understands, and they do, but you can only do that for so
I
long.
think that's been a big thing through COVID as well. I wonder how many people have lost touch. They immediately, we went into
Yeah.
quarantine, jobs changed, we quit. Some of us quit forever.
Yeah, when you start having that face to
Yeah,
face interaction, it's harder to have it over the phone, or especially on Zoom. I don't know many adults, not many children either, that really like doing
right,
Zooms.
right, right. Or even the FaceTime. I
Yeah.
think though the younger generation likes that.
Yeah, they're definitely more comfortable than
Yeah,
we are.
it,
But we're getting
it
there.
seems
Look at
like
us.
it. It seems like we're getting there. Okay, and go ahead.
And I was gonna ask you how you are planning to challenge yourself mentally
Well, I'm
this
going to add
year.
that. That's an ongoing one that definitely, because I read the Four Agreements to the Kids last year. It's at the top of my list. I love it. I love that you came up. And I also want to, the quickest way to learn things is to teach them. So I want to write more. I read a lot. And when I get done, then I move on to the next one. And I think about it and I share it with people, but I want to get more, I want to commit it more to my brain and integrate it with all the other information that I have. And I notice that when I do that, when I'm learning, I'm much sharper. But I want to keep it
Mm,
in my head as well. And the only way to do it is to connect it. And to teach it helps that connection. Yeah.
right. I like that. I think that's a really good plan, and you'll be spreading the word
Yeah.
of the things that you've learned. And I really like that because um, for me, I really want to be able to have professional conversations on um, these these topics that we
Mm-hmm.
discuss, um, with your coaching, with the project management, and I want to really connect with my peers.
Yeah.
And I want to feel like I can hold the conversation just as well as anybody else. And so I definitely think I'll be implementing some of that
Well, and
myself.
part of it is to be able to cite something that you've read, to have the correct name and
Right.
to say it correctly. It's always going to be in your voice. It's going to be in your interpretation, but to be able to accurately do that, I feel like is pretty important. The supporting evidence for my point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think it inspires conversations, and maybe you digested the information differently than somebody that you're um, teaching it to, and they're going to come back with having interpreted it in a different way. And you guys are collaborating now on a new way to look at these texts, or um, techniques and skills and tools that you're learning
Oh my
about.
gosh. Absolutely. And there comes the rub. And I have taught classes before, and every single time, I know you have too, I feel like the students are actually the teachers. Because when you start
Mm-hmm.
sharing the information, of course, I like to have it, and hopefully all teachers do, where it's live, it's in the moment. It isn't something that you just repeat every day, right? It's like got that day's
Right.
nuance.
No, because your audience
Yes,
changes.
yes.
So your topics, your discussion has to change with it. And it can't just be a one-way conversation. So I never see teaching as just a lecture with no banter
It's
back
not
and forth.
static,
I feel like that's
right?
so right. It's so
Very
important.
important. Very important. So that, let's go to emotion. So like I mentioned before,
Okay.
emotion, I one way to look at it is our emotions are our gauge. And a lot of us, my generation, was taught still not to express our emotions. That was big in my family. I grew up with all men. My dad was pull yourself up by your bootstraps, don't cry about it, let's just keep moving and get busy, just start working. So emotions weren't a good thing, and I consider myself empathic, and I stuffed a lot of things. So I'm getting better all the time at listening to myself if something comes up, asking myself, oh, okay, what's going on here, because they're really, for me, cues to things that I need to address. I feel like when we ignore ourselves, we ignore important guiding guidance from ourselves.
Right. Definitely. Right. You're not listening to your body's
Exactly.
tells.
Exactly. And that goes back, that's what I mentioned before with the physical, the eating. For me, it's tied up with the emotional. If I start feeling sorry
Mm-hmm.
for myself, and I probably am not aware that I'm feeling sorry for myself, but if I can address that and ask myself, so why are you doing this? Maybe like thinking about my future self is not as inspirational for me. But if I talk myself through it, like think about your emotional self, but you're not really eating this because you're hungry. You're eating this because you're feeling sorry for yourself. What else could you do with that? I'm feeling sorry for myself.
So you know what I just when you said that it just popped in my head. So at that moment, and maybe the moment's not the time to do it, but to go back and
Hmm.
address it is not to think about your future self, but to go back and think about your past self and why you have that habit.
Oh, yeah, to get to the root. Yeah.
And I know, right, yeah, to have the understanding because I feel like almost if you had the understanding of why you go to that particular thing with that particular emotion, you might unravel some things and then come up with new
Yes.
habits. And now I'm just as guilty because and for eating for me is a huge one because I hit it on almost every emotion. If I'm stressed, if I'm tired, if I'm sad, um, you know, happy. There's just so many emotions that they do revolve
Yeah.
around food. And I have, and unfortunately, I haven't really unraveled it all. But I've recognized points throughout my life where food was a
Hmm.
problem. And, um, you know, even like I tend to eat really fast. And I know that is because, um, back when I was younger, it was like you wanted to be able to have seconds or you wanted to have the last slice before somebody else got to it. Probably because I wasn't getting the nutrients that I
Hmm.
needed, or and again, like I said, I haven't unraveled everything, but I know these moments that created these bad
Yeah. I think
habits.
that's great. That's really good. Yeah. Yeah.
So you have your future self that you want to make the changes for, but I think you got to take care of your past self too to really understand your behaviors um, that are being
Exactly.
triggered.
Exactly. Yeah. And so what do you want to work on with your emotion?
Well, in saying that, I want to give myself permission to accept who I am without apology. And so that includes learning to forgive myself. And that could be for, those late night trips to the fridge. I'm going to forgive myself for
Yeah.
that. Um, I live with a lot of guilt, too much guilt, and worry about what others think of me and the choices I make. So I want to practice being true to
And
myself.
that's a hard one too, because
And
a lot of times we judge ourselves, or I know that I have in the past big time. When I first got it, I was like, what? I completely saw where I was living, I was doing things from what I thought other people wanted me to do or how to live.
yeah,
And that comes with all that judgment. And then there's all that guilt. And the truth is they don't care.
right.
But that was a big one.
They don't even
No.
notice a lot of
No.
times. You bend over backwards to do these things, and they're so hung up on their own self that they're not even acknowledging what we're
Exactly.
doing.
Yeah. That's a big one. Well, let's touch on spiritual. Uh, so, how do you see that for yourself?
So spiritually, I would like to recognize what I'm giving to the world and really understand my worth in this life so that I can feel content when I leave this world without regrets. So um, I think there's a difference between being happy and being content. And don't get me wrong, I want to
Mm-hmm.
be both. I, I want to, but I know that that's not, there's always going to be something that you didn't
Right.
do.
It's never going to get done.
So I don't, yeah. So I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on what I am doing and what that means and being content, being at peace, um, and knowing that I am enough, that I
Oh, that's big.
did well with my time here.
That's big. Right, right. What you said, where you're happy with where you're at, with what you're doing, with your being, with being. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
huge.
It's hard. I think we all, especially last year, I know we had talked a little bit about it. Like I was really worried, like, what have I done? I haven't done anything with this time and I'm wasting it. And I was spinning out of control, thinking just I wasn't good enough, that I haven't done enough. And so, really knowing that I'm doing my best, I am contributing to this world, and it may not be, um, you know, curing cancer, going to the moon, and doing these big things that have flashing lights, but I am worth this life I am using.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For me, I want to remember more the connection. I think it is the most important relationship for me is that relationship with my higher self. And my higher self to me is the universe. And
Hmm.
remembering sometimes I don't. And then when I get lost, what is the song? I'm going to take my hands off of the steering wheel. What is that song? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, is that
Yeah.
Jesus Take the
Yeah.
Wheel?
It-
Yeah, give it to
exactly.
God.
Exactly. I get way
Yeah,
too into trying to
this is,
control things, and I think that I can control whatever, and getting out of that mindset, letting that surrender.
oh, I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because especially with COVID starting, um, Sean and I, my husband, um, we use that saying a lot, give it to God. And at first it was like kind of a joke, like, oh yeah, just give it to God. And then like we both realized like there is deeper meaning to this. Like this is real and this is something we definitely need to be practicing. And I think we both took it a lot more serious after that. And we did, there are just some things that you can't control and you're not meant to, and you need to make peace with that and you need to find your way, um, with the cards you're
Exactly.
dealt, I guess.
Exactly. And that's big. That's hard. That's hard to remember. I love that it started off as a joke and then it found its way into your heart and into your soul, so to speak. I love that. Because,
Yeah.
language separates us. I mean, I hesitated to use it just because there's different kinds of religions, but I think they all basically say the same thing.
Right. Right. Whatever you believe in, you are it's that's what it is. It's belief. You are giving your full entire trust and faith into that higher
There's something that is
being.
bigger than us all, but yet connects us all.
Right.
Yeah, I
Right.
love that. Ooh, I love where we're going this year.
Uh, yeah, 2022 is going to be a really big year. We're making revolutions and we're going to change the world.
And we're transforming. My favorite
So,
thing is being a
we
butterfly.
are.
And butterfly signifies transformation. And let's face it, we are always transforming. But part of the fun of transforming is being conscious about it. Really getting the joy out of the journey.
I love
Good,
that.
because I thought it sounded a little speechy.
No. Well, I think we need to wrap things up there.
Oh, okay.
Thanks everyone for, yeah, we're right at our time slot. So thanks everyone for listening. We hope that you took some of these ideas and come up with your own revolutions for 2022. Keep listening for more inspiring conversations. If there's a topic that you want us to tackle, reach out to us at inbroaddaylight.podcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Be sure to check out our previous podcasts and come back next week.